Alright, thanks for watching another one of my videos. Today we're going to replace the chain on a 2000 Honda VFR 800. This is going to be the same process for the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th gen VFR. About the only thing different is the color of the bike. But anyway, we're going to break these nuts free that are holding the sprocket on. So what I'm doing is I have a ratchet on one side and I have an Allen wrench on the other holding the back of the sprocket bolt, and we just want to loosen each one of these bolts up. Next we're going to take the cover off, the front sprocket cover off. To do that we have to remove the speedo sensor, and it's just two 8mm bolts that hold that on. And then we'll just swing that up out of the way. And now we will remove the clutch slade cylinder. And we'll finish up with removing the bolts that hold the sprocket cover in place. So you can see the front sprocket, the countershaft sprocket, just fine now. Once we hang all this crap up out of the way, we can get to it. So I'm going to go to the right side of the bike and I'm going to push down on the rear brake as I put my breaker bar on the nut that's on the countershaft sprocket, and it will just break that free. This is easiest done with the chain still on the bike. Once you remove the chain, you're not going to be able to get as much leverage. That countershaft sprocket will turn. And there we go, it just broke free. So we'll just finish removing the countershaft bolt. And now we're loosening the pinch bolts on the rear hub So this will allow us to spin the rear hub forward to get as much slack in the chain as possible. So on this, it's righty loosey, lefty tighty. So the easiest way I found to break a chain is to use bolt cutters. And I just pick a link, put the bolt cutters on, and then snap through it. It's not like you're ever going to use this chain again. You're throwing it out after this, so there's no need to save any parts of it. Now that the chain's off the bike, we've removed the front countershaft sprocket and we're installing a new countershaft sprocket. I buy all my sprockets from sprocketcenter.com. They have a pretty nice selection of kits that you can buy. Front rear sprocket, chain, and master link. You can choose which sprocket sizes to go with. I pretty much always stick with stock sprocket sizes. If you want to go a little bit faster, better hole shot, the best way to do it is to go up 2 or 3 teeth in the rear. It's not always a great idea to go down on the front sprocket. When you go down teeth on the front sprocket, you have the opportunity to make the chain bind too much going around the sprocket, and this will wear your chain out quicker. So if you're running a 15, 16 tooth sprocket on the front, I would leave it at that and go up teeth on the rear sprocket rather than going down to like a 14 tooth on the front to get a better hole shot. So there's my new rear sprocket going on. And as you can tell, it looks a little bit better. The one I took off, they were OEM sprockets that I had picked up. I had found a VFR with very low miles on it, and I was able to get the OEM sprocket and chain off the bike. And what I did was bead cleaned the rear sprocket and painted it black. Made it look a little better than that stock rear sprocket that was more of a silver color. So I'm putting all my sprocket bolts back in now. We're going to put all the bolts in first before we start tightening them down. And if any of you have seen this video before, I'm sure you have, I had to pull this off of YouTube's. I had third-party content because I had music playing in the background. I had the radio going as I was working in my garage, like many of us do, while I was shooting the video. And YouTube says that that's third-party copyright infringement. So I just went ahead and I lost the raw footage. My old laptop was stolen, so all of my raw footage disappeared. So I just downloaded video from YouTube, and I'm just re-talking over what was on the original video and just turned all the background sound all the way down. I use Vegas Movie Studio to do my videos, and it really does a good job of allowing me to make changes. So right now we're just finishing up tightening down the sprocket bolts around the eccentric before we put the chain on. And here's our new DID chain. And what we'll do is we'll rip this box open. The chain's going to be in a nice wax paper cover. So we're going to work off this wax paper cover. So we'll lay it out, and then we'll take our master link and rip it open, and we'll put all the parts of the master link on this clean wax paper. So we'll just feed the chain up over the top and out to the countershaft sprocket. And then once we get to the countershaft sprocket, we can just spin the chain around the front of the countershaft sprocket and then down underneath. So we'll drag the chain all the way to the back of the rear sprocket. It's easier to line up the chain for the master link if you do it on the sprocket rather than doing it in the middle of the chain where it's hanging down under the bike. This way the sprocket holds the chain together in the right distance, the correct distance for the master link to slide right in. So this is the white lithium grease that's supplied with the new master link. We want to make sure that we use all that grease. So go ahead and put grease into the holes of the chain, into the links of the chain. And we want to make sure that we get enough, just ample grease on the O-ring or X-ring that is on this master link, along with the other side of the master link when we put the cover on the master link. So this grease is actually what is in each one of these links. And when you read about O-ring and X-ring chains, the O-ring and X-ring, those are the rubber seals that keep this lube from escaping from the chain. So it's a good idea not to clean your chain with penetrating oil. Some say it's alright for WD-40 because it doesn't soak in, but if you do a penetrating oil like liquid wrench, the penetrating oil can get in past the O-ring and start to break down your lubrication that's within the links, and then your chain wears out quicker. So my suggestion when you're cleaning a chain, I use Gojo hand cleaner, and what I do is I just take a brush and dip it in the tub of Gojo and wipe it on my chain and clean the chain wax off of the chain. I don't use chain lube because this really isn't a motocross bike. The chain's already lubed internally. What we want to do is use chain wax to protect the chain, the outside of the chain. The inside of the chain's already being protected. So for a street bike, it's better to use chain wax than chain lube. If we were motocrossing all day long, I would say, yeah, use the PJ1 chain lube, but we're not, so just use the Maxima chain wax. Alright, so I have my Motion Pro chain tool here, And what this is going to do at this point is it's going to mash. We're actually going to push that cover onto the master link. So right now we're pretty much just pressing the cover onto the master link with the chain tool. Be sure to always wear safety glasses when you're doing this. I'm not sure if I have them on, but I had an accident one day working on an R1, and the master link actually shattered on me. And if that shard of steel would have been left just an inch, it would have taken out my eye. Really, anytime you're working on a bike, you probably should have safety glasses on. It's not a bad idea. Alright, so my master link is now pressed on, which means that the two rivet ends are just slightly sticking, maybe a millimeter or less than a millimeter out of the cover of the master link. So at this point I'm going to change my chain tool over and put the rivet link installer into the chain tool, and what that's going to do is go into the little hole on the master link, on the stud of the master link, and it's going to spread that little hole out so the cover will never come off again. And like I said, doing a Yamaha R1, this is the exact place where that rivet just snapped, the side of the rivet. So there's one done, and now we're going to do the other. A rivet style link is much safer than a master link with the little slide key. That little slide, when you're going down the road, can pop off, and then your master link separates and it'll throw your chain off. So with the rivet style link, you don't have the chance of your chain breaking unless the mechanic or shop that puts your chain on just does a crappy job, and that does happen. So with the chain in place, I'm going to take my spanner and I'm going to turn the eccentric and move the hub to the rear. And we want to check to make sure that we have just enough slack in the bike, so when we get on the bike and put weight on it, the chain isn't too tight. It's a good idea to double check this once you get the rear wheel on. Have somebody sit on the bike and then check your chain to make sure you have enough play. Now once the chain's in place, we can go ahead and tighten down the bolt on the countershaft sprocket. We want to do this from the right hand side of the bike. That way you can apply pressure to the rear brake and tighten this bolt down. And with that bolt tightened down, we can go ahead and we can put our countershaft sprocket cover on, along with our slave cylinder. And don't forget to put your speedometer sensor back in place. Do make sure that your speedometer sensor gets on top of that countershaft sprocket bolt properly. You can misalign the speedo sensor and the little plastic hub that rides on the countershaft bolt will break off. It can break off, and then you're out on eBay looking for a new speedo sensor. So once you get all your bolts tightened down, it's ready to put the rear wheel on, and you take it out for a spin. Thanks for watching my video. I hope this was informative for you. Please do watch some of my others.